right, I have 12:30 on my clock, so I'll go ahead and kick us off here. My name is Meredith Wellman. I work at the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center at Ohio State University, and this is our last real talk of the year. Today we're talking about teaching our kids about race, equity, and inclusion. Can you hit the next slide? There we go. Thank you. I'm joined today by Eshelle Yarborough. She's lead teacher at the Sophie Rogers School for Early Learning, and she's going to be giving today's presentation. Eshelle earned her Child Development Associate credential in 2013. She is a native of Columbus, Ohio, and has worked at the Sophie Rogers School for 8 years. As a lead teacher, she promotes diversity and representation within the classroom environment and plans to continue her education studying the effects of trauma and toxic stress on infants and toddlers. As I said before, we are recording today's session so that those who can't be here live can access the materials later on. And we'll be using the chat feature for kind of a little bit more interaction while Eshelle presents. So please introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to know where you're coming from, how many kids you have, what ages they are. And also, I'd love if everyone could share the title of your favorite book to talk to your kids about differences, about diversity, about race, and all those fun topics. I personally have 2 young children at home, and my favorite book that celebrates differences is called The Night Is Yours by Abdul Razak Zakaria. That's my fave. I will be posting some resources and some resources and links in the chat box, but if you can't see them, we'll also add them to our website, our Real Talk website after the session today. We are all going to remain muted during the presentation so we can hear Eshelle really well. But as I said, we encourage use of the chat box. We'd love to know about you and your family so that we can all kind of share how we talk to our kids about race, diversity, inclusion. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Eshelle, thank you so much for being our presenter today.
Thank you so much, Meredith. I'm very happy to be here. I also want to let you know that I do have my colleague next to me, Samantha Peterson, so she may chime in if need be. So let's get started. In those early years of teaching, really, parents are the first teacher of our young ones. So also we as adults need to be open to learning new things. Progress means celebrating change. All right, so here are some topics for today's discussion. Getting over your fears. We all have them, and we're going to talk through it. Finding good teachable moments in the everyday. Modeling appropriate behaviors for our children, and what to do when my child says something that makes me, the adult, uncomfortable. And then I'm going to give you some resources and books to share with your kiddos. Okay, it's okay to be afraid to have these types of conversations, but get over it. A lack of communication and expression from when we were young can make these conversations more challenging. So let me tell you a story when my daughter was in kindergarten and how I was able to use this moment that happened into a teachable moment for myself and for the child. So my daughter is biracial, and she pretty much looks white if you don't know who she is. So at school one day I was picking her up from kindergarten, and there was a little boy that was walking by, and she ran up to me, mommy, I'm asking how's her day, how did it go? And he said, that's her mother? That can't be her mother. She's Black. And I said, okay, yes, I am. But also, I had her in my belly, just like your mommy did. And when Ariel came out, my baby, I just treated her and held her like your mommy held you. And just to know that we are all different. And I pretty much left it like at that moment to let him process, let me process, and just go on with the day. And it seemed to work, although I didn't see that boy ever again. So also I'm going to go into differences right now are no longer something to not notice or to talk about, especially in this day and age right now. I'll give you some examples in my classroom, my infant and toddler classrooms. We didn't have a lot of print media in our classroom available that focused on differences of abilities and gender expression and racial representation. So we chose to highlight Black and Brown authors with simply by making changes to the environment in the classroom. We were still teaching the content standards, but incorporating more diversity in our children's learning. So here's some things you can do. Going to local festivals, talking to your neighbors, going out and asking them, what they do in their family culture, and also talking with your children as well with books. So modeling that. Children learn through observations of those around them and then imitate behaviors. So when we want to ensure we're using appropriate language and also adjust our behaviors accordingly, and it's important that you are aware of messages and TV shows with the internet. And I encourage you to watch those shows before and then after with your child. So if there's any questions that may pop up, that you can answer if they have them. Next is, Samantha, would you like to chime in and say a couple things?
Sure. I think, Eshelle and I have actually been having a lot of conversations lately just about, race and equity and gender. And one of the things, obviously I am a white woman. And so, it's been really great that as, things have come up that I'd like to get a different opinion on, or, just to have someone there that can really share their own kind of experiences. I think one of the things, like for our young children, as we're wanting to model these kinds of behaviors, is our children seeing us interact with people that don't look like us. Maybe they don't speak the same languages that we do, or perhaps they have varying disabilities. So, some of the things Eshelle and I have built a really positive relationship over
Yes.
the past 8 years. And, we've both been able to feel really comfortable of having really open and honest discussions, with each other, whether it's about things that are happening, in our environment or things that happen at home. So I think really, for your kids, it's making sure that you're keeping it real. And so I think Eshelle is going to talk a little bit next about like stereotyping and avoiding stereotyping, and how best to approach those kinds of situations with our children too.
Thank you. With that, avoiding stereotypes, people think that all Black people eat fried chicken, eat watermelon, and drink Kool-Aid. That's not true at all. I shouldn't say at all. We do, but don't stereotype that. And that all Asians are good at math. Not true either. So try not to speak in generalizations. A common practice that, we have come across as parents is that when you shush your child, when they're asking a question of something that they may have observed about someone else, instead, answer them as a teachable moment. And shushing can make it appear that what they're saying is bad or wrong, when it could be like it's sending an incorrect message. So don't overreact to their comments and questions, but don't ignore them either. Open communication is definitely key. with that, definitely. I did want to throw in there, as a Black teacher of an IT classroom that is all Caucasian children, I embrace it, of their comments and questions from them. I'll give you a little story behind that. It's going to be kind of quick. I have a little girl in my classroom, and we were in our gross motor space. She loves baby dolls. She loves to read. She's very attached to me. We have conversations, and she's really noticing differences of color and different cultures. We have those books in our classroom. And one day in the gross motor space, we were just looking at a book of colors, different shapes. So I asked her, what color is she? And she said, white. I said, what color? The baby doll that she had was a brown baby doll. And I said, what color is the baby doll? And she said, brown. And I then said, what's the color of Eshelle? And she dropped her head. Like, I said, it's okay. If you don't know, I can tell you, we can talk about it. And I said, we talk about color all the time, and differences of color of our friends in the classroom and that we see around the school. And then again, so I asked her, I said, what color is the baby doll? And she said, brown. And I said, what color is this child? And she said, white. I said, what color are you? And she said, white. I said, so what color is Eshelle? And she said, brown. I said, yes. And that's okay if you didn't know. And you can definitely ask me. And it's no shame of being scared or that you're saying anything wrong to me, friend. So that was another teachable moment. Now that I am coming close to the end, I want to give you some resources that may be interesting in reviewing, that will help you answer some of questions from your children, and also activities to do. I also have put together some books in my classroom that we read throughout our school, and this is a favorite. Of course, Please Baby Please, and these are from like 0 to 8 as well, and different genders, expressions, different cultures, and Skin Like Mine is a good one, and I Am Enough. That's pretty much the end of my presentation. So I want you to know that I'm thankful that I got to be here today and discuss this conversation with you. Also, take our survey afterwards, and take care and have a great day.
Thank you, Eshelle. And I love all the book recommendations. Sometimes when you're, headed to the library, it's just nice to have some specific recommendations in mind. I know my library, you can kind of pick things out in advance online. So that's a good option if you don't want to feel overwhelmed by the selections before, when you get there in person, you can actually order them in advance and then have kind of the list there as you do that. So very much appreciate you putting the time into coming up with a list for people. And I did put the resources Word document in the chat, but if anyone needs me to reshare that, I can. And I will put our closing survey in just a minute, but at this point, I think if we go to the next slide, it's just an opportunity to share your experiences or ask any questions that you have. And I can even we could even take the slides down and just do gallery view. People can turn on their cameras and talk. So, this is not something we always get a chance to ask other parents and caregivers and early childhood teachers about. So if you've had a recent experience that felt odd or uncomfortable as a parent, you just want to kind of get Eshelle's take on it or get some advice from other parents in the room as well, this is the time. So Samantha, do you want to take the slides down so we can see more people in the gallery view? Hi, Sam. Glad you could be here today.
Great to be here. I have something to share. I don't want to necessarily want to be the first one, but
Go for it. Break the ice.
all right. So yeah, my son goes to Schoenbaum. He's been in Eshelle's class before. I'm just gonna name names. Isaac. Isaac's very curious about the world, and he is definitely noticing difference a lot more. And we talk about it, and yeah, just sort of throw out what happened recently. So we went to a little music performance, outdoor music performance in our neighborhood recently, and it was like a soul jazz improvisational group. Three black men were playing instruments. Isaac was very interested in all the instruments. At some point during the performance, he called out to me. We were sort of sitting in a blanket. He was like, "That guy looks like Sheldon's dad." And I was like, "Oh, interesting. What about him makes you, what reminds you of Sheldon's dad?" Or, yeah, just, sort of tell me more about what you're thinking. He was like, or like, what about him? He was like, "Oh, the color of his skin." And I was like, "Oh, well, what do you notice?" He's like, "It's dark." And I was like, "Yeah, that's right. Anything else?" I was like, "Is there anything else about he had like his hat?" He was like, he had like a backwards hat on. I was like, sometimes Sheldon's dad wears a hat. And what I've noticed him, so this is sort of like the most recent example of him seeing like a black man or a black woman and sort of relating that to someone he has a personal connection to. He also does this with like bald men. He'll see like a bald man and be like, "That's so-and-so." And so, I'm sort of like trying to like help him think about and sort of process what he's seeing and talk about it. But there wasn't like, it was sort of like, that was sort of it, right? And we sort of like, he didn't have any more questions. I didn't really probe any further. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to help him see the world and appreciate differences. But yeah, if there's anything else maybe I could have done or prompted later.
I feel that you definitely did great in that moment, because he recognized it, he noticed it, and just like we said, just keep it simple. Like there was no need to really, well, I shouldn't say not a need, but to go forward even more with it is that how you explain to him and talk to him. First of all, he recognized thinking that that's Sheldon's dad. So then also when he's out, he's probably thinking, "Oh, every black man might be Sheldon's dad." No, you might see this one, he does look like him, but also there are other people of color, that you see. And the more he's going to recognize that, he's probably going to open up even more and talk to you about it. So I keep just saying often, make it simple. And what you're doing is fine. When you're unsure about it, just let him know, "Hey, buddy, I'm not real sure about that. Let's find out together, or I'll look into that for you, and then we'll come back to it."
Yeah, I think that was something that, Eshelle really hopefully you can all hear me. Eshelle had really talked about, was the open communication and how important that is. Her and I have talked a lot about just kind of like some different scenarios that, have come up, in her own life or, with other families and things like that. And I think it's like when we try to shy away from having those important conversations with our kids, especially, for me as an all white family, if my kids are bringing up any kind of like differences, in race, like I want to make sure that I'm talking to them about it and like what is it that you're noticing? I think, Isaac had a frame of reference to like go back to. Sometimes children don't. And so then parents do have to have some more explanation perhaps around like why families might look a little bit different, but he at least was able to relate that back to his own personal life. So, really, I think when people can relate things back to what they already know, how great and important that is, because then they can have like a real connection to it too for their understanding.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or stories that you want to share from your parenting journeys?
I would love to share something that came up with my 3-year-old and I the other day. His best friend is Black, and he said we are twins because we wear the same shirts all the time. But recently he decided to grow his hair puffy so we can't be twins anymore. And I didn't know if as a parent,
that's cute.
I didn't know if we should, celebrate that my son doesn't see differences, or if we should have been very pointed to point out that his friend is different, and his differences are something to be celebrated. So that was a moment that my husband and I just had pause, because, you see the meme on Facebook that like, oh, look, they're the same kid and they don't see differences, but maybe we should be calling out and celebrating differences. And so we weren't sure how to handle the puffy hair.
Like I said, you notice color, and I don't care too much when people say, you see no color, and if you don't see color, then you're not seeing me. You're not seeing the best friend boy.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. I don't call it a stereotype. It's like labeling. I feel like when they say what I just said, which I just forgot that fast. The puffy hair is what got me, Brittany, which I thought it was the cutest way how he said it. They're going to notice that different textures in children with their hair. It's their hair and it's straight. And then when another child comes in of color, or even another nationality or culture, that it can be thicker and just one specific color, like black hair, dark hair. I have to say I don't have that. Mine is blonde, blonde hair. So maybe even a finish up, maybe get one of those with that.
Probably.
A lot,
really,
I'm keeping it simple.
Yeah, I think really like what you're talking about, Brittany, is that it's going back and forth. It's celebrating the differences and celebrating the similarities. And I think it is focusing on your hair looks different. Like that's what makes, you special. That's what makes your friends special, is that we all look different and have different families. But yeah, you're right. You guys like to wear the same shirts. You like to dress up the same. So you have so many similarities that still makes you really good friends. So, I think it is celebrating, both of those. Same time. And I think even, just by you asking that question, am I doing this right? Like, absolutely. There's no right or wrong in how you approach it. But I think just at the same time, it's acknowledging that, and to see that your child is, thinking about that, and that's okay. That's his friend, no matter what.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Brittany. We've got about 7 more minutes of open question time, or open story time. I love this. This is really what I wanted out of the session. Rochelle, did you want to share a story?
Yeah, I put something in the chat, but as a mother of multiracial children, it was really important for me to make sure that they understood the similarities and differences and celebrated their differences and our differences, and that it's okay to notice difference. And we talk about our children noticing things outside of our family, but my child came home one day when she was younger, and you could probably tell by my picture, I usually wear very long extensions. And so my daughter came home and she said, Mom, nobody has hair like me, because her baby sister has a hair texture very similar to her father. And I wore all these extensions, and she had hair texture that was more similar to my natural hair. And I had to explain to her, wow, you have hair just like mommy's, but as Black women, we have all different types of hair textures, and that's okay. And we've also had conversations about when we hear, well, I don't see color. And a lot of people, especially non-people of color, will say, oh, I don't see color. And I've always been respectful, but also said, I kind of find that a little offensive, because I want you to see my color. It's really important for me for you to see who I am as a whole person. And being a woman of color is a very important piece of who I am. And so I've used that language with my kids. I used it in the classroom when I was teaching, that it's okay to acknowledge differences, and we should celebrate it, because I think it's really great to be a Black woman and a Black teacher and talk to kids in that same way. But I think it's really great that you're a white child or a white teacher, and and kind of just talk about our differences and really make sure that we don't have to hide it. We don't have to not talk about it or whisper about it. We want to celebrate our differences. And that starts with very young children knowing that it's okay. And Eshelle, I loved your story. That was a wonderful teachable moment about the appreciation and that it's okay to acknowledge difference.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very touching to me, because really what got me with it was when she dropped her head. And I just thought, I gasped to myself, didn't let her see that or know that, and thought, oh my gosh, I hope, no one said anything to her. I don't know. We don't know at that time what was going on at home, if there is, and just curiosity, or maybe like I said in my presentation, is she just wasn't sure, how to answer, my question, and thinking that she had maybe said something wrong. So celebrating that, I believe, surely in celebrating change, in celebrating progress, in celebrating that these young infant and toddler children are asking these questions or are making statements about it, and for them to be comfortable and show that representation around of different colors and nationalities, like you were saying. I feel it's very important especially for people of color in this day and age, what has happened over the last, 19 months. I have really put forth a lot more effort in my classroom to display diversity. That's a huge thing in my classroom. Right now, we have a documentation board right now outside of our classroom, and it's a diamond shape, and we put the word in equality inside of the word. And then we took pictures of like holding the world, children's hands holding the world, different pictures of different nationalities, different cultures and foods that they noticed and recognized. And then we did a border of all of some of the books that I showed you, because there's plenty more. And please definitely Google and look at our resources of different books. We came across a lot of I did last week in preparing, and there were even books I didn't even know and realize that for Indian food, not just Mexican food. I was learning about a recipe for, Samantha and I were talking about German food and her loving Brussels sprouts. And I was like, no, I don't do that. Or sauerkraut. I don't eat that either. But different foods that you can do with your kids and activities to show that representation makes a difference, and that's what we honestly really see. It's not just one color. It's not just white race. It's not just the Black race. It's every single one. And with that and what happened again these last 18 months, it's just like, wow, it's always been there. It just came out and just flowed. And the children's reception of it was amazing.
Well, and can I just brag on Eshelle for a second too? I know she hates it when I do this, but I'm going to anyway. It has been, and actually if you go to our website, she is featured on our website. Her classroom is our featured project for this month. And it's really showcasing, not like specifically like, oh, here is like an activity around race and diversity and equity, but the activity that they are showing on there and like what they're talking about with their children is doing all of those things in a way that's developmentally appropriate for infants and toddlers. And the documentation panel that she has out on the wall outside of their classroom, it's just beautiful. And you can actually see it in one of the photos that's in that feature project as well. And, it's so wonderful, just to see, and how much like she has embrace that, and really is just showing, children, all of the children in our school are able to walk past, that documentation panel and like see themselves represented in it. Even though it's not like pictures of themselves, but pictures that they can all see, each other within that. Yeah. And there's similarities and differences within that. And so it's just a really subtle way, but she's done such an amazing job of really showcasing how that is coming out in her classroom. Which is great. I know she doesn't like it. She doesn't like it when I brag on her.
Well, we are past 1:00, but so if you need to pop off, that's fine. I did want to share that, Samantha, when you were talking, I was remembering when I read the book, The Hate You Give, I was struck by the author's explanation of what was hanging in her childhood home. And it really got me thinking about representation in my house. Like, am I representing a variety of people throughout history? I think she had Malcolm X quotes on the wall, or a picture of Malcolm X on the wall, or something like that. But it got me thinking about representation in my house. And I feel like homes are like training grounds for kids to learn about the world. So, if we have particular news shows on or children's shows on, and they are kind of, limiting in terms of what my kid's getting exposed to, then she's going to go out in the world not really having been taught to be able to recognize and understand differences in a positive way. So I love this conversation today because it's very positive. Oftentimes we hear that this is kind of a scary topic, and to me, it doesn't have to be. So I appreciate, Eshelle, your advice on keeping it simple and all the stories that were shared today. But just also, like, as a parent, I feel like it's been an interesting couple of years to think about how I'm presenting race and diversity in my own home. So, I love your classroom example. I think it probably looks a little different in someone's house, but it's not impossible to sort of embrace diversity in what you cook for dinner, in what artwork you put on the walls, in what quotes you share with your kids, in the books that you have in your bookshelf. So anyways, just appreciating the home and classroom examples are really helpful.
Brittany, I'm not sure if you know the book that just came to mind when what Meredith just said. You probably know it, but I'm going to mention it again. It's called Hair Love.
We love that one.
Yeah.
And I think they heard that in his classroom too.
They do. Yeah. Lauren, did you have a question? I saw that your hand raised up there.
Well, it wasn't a question. It was just a comment.
Oh, sure.
I don't want to keep everyone. I just, I wanted to thank Eshelle also because, I think on Tilda's first or second day back at Schoenbaum, the sheet came to us and it was like, what did you do today? And it was like talking about powerful women and racial justice. And I was like,
That was this week because I was at work and I was like, look.
No, this is
oh, okay.
But I was like, yes, like back at Schoenbaum. And that was so exciting. But one thing I just want to say in terms of like representation and, giving kids sort of representation and experiences, I guess, with different cultures, and for, my white children and white children in particular, experiences with for me, like one of the things I try to do, some of you know I'm a dancer also, and so that's put me in contact with like some of the dance community in Columbus, and there's like such amazing Black cultural history and Black culture, performance, both history and present day in Columbus, and there's events all the time, whether it's music or dance or theater. And like those organizations and those artists need support also, so those are great opportunities. Like you had put festivals on the slides, and so festivals, but also just looking for who the artists of color are, and for events that take kids to. Yeah, the museum and the
and do you have an upcoming recommendation for like a kid-friendly, maybe outdoor performance this fall?
Do I?
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. If you can't think of any, that's fine.
Not that I can think of right now off the top of my head, because also a lot of them are going on in the summer. But like Maroon Arts Group is a great organization that that does a lot of arts things. King Arts Complex always has stuff. going on.
Lauren, if you wouldn't mind, like if you want to send me a list and some information, and I can do that with Meredith, and we can put that as part of our list of resources, things for people to check out. That would be